Hello. This is Tando from Cosmic Spark, and I'm back again with another video. This one is going to be on what I hate about Cancer. Let's not waste no time. Let's get into it. Alrighty, Cancer. So we're at the fourth sign of the zodiac. Like I said in my previous video, if you've been watching these in order, I feel like all elements will utilize their intrinsic elemental traits for bad. So, what are the negative aspects of a water sign, right? Being emotional, which can turn into being emotionally manipulative. If you are someone who understands emotions and you wield your emotions to make decisions and to power you through anything, then you can totally use that for bad. Let's start there. So yeah, Cancerians, you guys are emotional manipulators. I said Geminis were master manipulators, and I was thinking in a cerebral way. Whereas Cancerians are great emotional manipulators in like a emotional way. And sometimes it's in a very, very childish way as well when we think about them being a part of the first quadrant, which represents the earlier years of one's life. And so there can be a childishness to how they approach their emotions and the things that they want to get away with, so to speak. So obviously, if you do something bad to them, this can bring out the shadow side to a Cancer. So expect silent treatment. If you've messed up, whether you know you've messed up or not, a Cancerian will deal with it through silent treatment. Failing that, they will start making jabs through comments instead of outrightly stating to you what the problem is because of that passive aggressiveness. Now, this can obviously be offset by other aspects of one's birth chart. So this isn't prescriptive. If the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it, okay? But yeah, I have watched Cancerians in real time manipulate their partners, their friends. Weaponizing your emotions looks like when you don't get what you want, you throw a tantrum. Just because you're responding that way doesn't mean that the person initially did something worthy of you responding that way. And so just like with classical conditioning in psychology, because I'm a big psychology buff, you can classical condition someone into behaving in a way that you want, which is manipulation. Because there's a difference between, hey, stating my needs, this is what I want, and then you can obviously be reactive to the person crossing your boundaries or whatever. But with Cancerians, sometimes it's like they're just being selfish. And if you end up being under their thumb, then you're going to be fully morphing your behavior to avoid those emotional downturns and troughs in the relationship. But it's not foolproof because also, like, one, emotions are something that can easily be controlled. And whether or not you avoid it by, doing something, whatever the Cancerian wants. If their life ends up if the pressure of responsibility in their life happens, it can also cause an outburst of emotion. And sometimes they allow things to build up so that they can have a big emotional outburst. And you don't want to be there for a Cancerian's emotional outburst. Just like with Gemini, I think Cancerians can do a lot of projecting in how they are emotionally responding in arguments with you. They can be the type to tell you, give you a psychoanalysis, or you're doing this because of X, Y, and Z, or whatever, and be completely oblivious. Or maybe they're not even oblivious. Maybe they do know that they're doing it, but they can act like they're oblivious to these behaviors within themselves, or act like you doing it doesn't mean that they're doing it either. So they can be the type to tell you that you're gaslighting them when they're the ones gaslighting you. So you just got to be able to keep up. You got to be able to tell the difference between this is someone just expressing themselves as a normal human being, and this is someone who's wanting a particular outcome. So they're pressing particular buttons to get to that outcome. You know what I mean? Okay. Cancerians, you guys are known for having quite odd relationships with your mothers. I say odd because there is a spectrum of odd behavior and it happens on both the feminine and masculine sides. With the masculine sides, look, I know someone's going to be upset with this, but this is the every sign has negative aspects, okay? Sometimes with Cancerian men, I feel like you guys just want to crawl back into the womb. Like, if you guys could crawl back into the womb, you would. And you don't even always recognize that behavior in yourself. And so you guys can go seek women that are like your mum. And it's a little uncanny if someone knows you and gets to experience um, that and be able to make the connection. Like, on the positive side, right? Cancer men seem to sometimes have a reverence for women because of that strong bond that they have with their parent. If they're lucky, there's a lot of really healthy boundaries between them. And so it doesn't kind of show up in like negative ways. And so they'll seek out strong, um, matriarchal figures because it's what they identify with being a moonchild themselves. It is also what they identify from home because a lot of Cancerians, it doesn't relate to everyone, had a stronger mother figure than their father figure. The father might have been present, but he might not have had as good of a hold on what's happening in the household. And so everyone in the house, the male children and the female children, realize that the power lies in the feminine. And so that kind of has a flow-on effect to the dating world. But when a Cancer man wants you, he has evaluated that you're mummy energy. Even if he doesn't want kids, it's like there's something about you that screams maternal. So do with that information what you will. If that sounds lovely to you and you're like, yum, then go for it. And if you're like, then I totally get it. But yeah, there's this like weirdness. Like it's very hard to know a Cancer and not know that they have a weird relationship with their mum. Whether that's the mom has died and this person doesn't want to talk about them, but if you have heard about them, you'll be able to see how the mum is quite present still in the psyche of that person. And then with you, Cancerian women, sometimes your mother gives you lots and lots of complexes about how to be a woman, about how to show up. Sometimes Cancerian mothers and the Cancerian women themselves can be very male centered. They can have very good boundaries with their feminine friends and then not so good boundaries with their masculine friends and lovers. And so you can find a lot of Cancerian women that they can be a bit of a loner and they have a few friends, and sometimes those friends skew toward the masculine. Or even if they don't, you can just see it maybe in pick me ish behavior that they exhibit when it comes to dating, the things that they'll put up with that person, even with the mood swings and everything. There's just this element of like reverence. But one thing that Cancer woman can do is make you feel like a man. So if you want someone who makes you feel like, in that traditional way, you are the masculine to their feminine, get yourself a Cancerian woman. Um, but yeah, that's something that I hate about Cancers is how male centered they are, and trying to get them, like, a lot of Cancerian women can be both stay at home, like homebodies, right? Because homebodies, when you're thinking of homebodies in the zodiac, Cancer is definitely one of them. But they can also have this like party girl thing going on. And I've seen this with Cancerian men too, where it's like their normal everyday mask that they exhibit can be very responsible and very thoughtful, but beneath the surface they could be doing things in their spare time that you won't know unless you're close to them, or you won't know if they don't want you to know. And those things that they're doing beneath the surface are sleeping around, maybe. And this is a sex positive space, okay? But it could be like sleeping around or doing some debauchery. And I find Cancerians can really compartmentalize, which is something I spoke about in What I Love About Cancer video. They can really compartmentalize and have like differing versions of self with different people. And so if you are unlucky and the Cancer that you're with is someone that doesn't have a good moral compass, they could be cheating on you, have a whole different life, and you won't know it. And every time you think you're suspecting it, they will go hard on you that this is just an example of your mummy or your daddy issues. It's just an example of your anxious attachment. You're always doing this. You're just crazy. You're just a little bit jealous. Like, you just go on and on. It's the same thing. And then you're like, oh my God, damn, that's a me problem. Like, I really stuffed that up. I had that so wrong. And the whole time they're just manipulating so they can continue doing what they're doing. Negative Cancerian traits. Being childish. You can see that in sometimes what they are crashing out about. Or even in the way that they're handling arguments, like some of the things that we've already touched on in this video. Being moody, I believe we've already touched on that. They can't help it, but they can help how they can't help being emotional, but I think they can have way more control than they can let you on. And sometimes the crash outs are strategic. You know what I mean? Let me think. Because with the emotional aspect, and yes, I would say Cancerians can be grudge holders. They can have a very long memory. When we're thinking about Cancer ruling the fourth house, Cancer rules the family, but also like the past as well. And so, yeah, they can have very long memories about like your indiscretions, and they can definitely plan attacks. I wouldn't say they would do it in like a scorpionic way where they're willing to wait 10 years to enact the perfect revenge. But being punished by cancers is not unusual. Feeling like you're being punished, you might have apologized for something that you did, but you might still feel in their behavior like you're being punished. If you're feeling that and you're thinking about a Cancer, you probably are being punished. Let's be for real. One thing I hate about Cancer men is just the obsession with the breasts. I will not elaborate any further. Woman. And just knowing, if you already know them and you know their relationship to their mother and you know about astrology, it can just all be a bit much, They, Cancerian men can want you. Sometimes Cancers, men and women, but I find it more so with the men, can really get upset with the idea that Cancer is an emotional sign. Sometimes you can see a lot of resistance within them. They want to fight the idea that as a Cancer that they're emotional. And sometimes, maybe as a coping mechanism with their boys, they suppress the physical expression of their emotional nature, but they may reserve the emotions that are acceptable for their sex, in this case, men. And so they'll allow themselves to get angry, or like the typical male centered approved emotions that makes them think that they're less emotional than women, which is just a myth. Um, and so they can be really good at suppressing that because that's how they get along with other men, is that they've got to fit in, even though they're supposed to be a little bit more emotionally in tune and emotionally in touch, which they definitely utilize in their dating world. But yeah, they utilize that to fit in with men. And so you can believe them when they tell you that they're not emotional. But if you understand that, firstly, people don't even understand always when they're being emotional and what emotions are, the fact that people think anger isn't an emotion shows you that people don't even necessarily understand that whole world to begin with. And when you understand, it's like when you're watching them be passive aggressive, you realize that that is stemming from an emotion, right? And so, like with Cancerians, I find they're very reactive to things. And so you can you'll know that something's wrong because you'll see the change of behavior and you'll feel the energetic shift. And because they are so emotional, they can wear their heart on their sleeve sometimes. And so when they're no longer doing the things that they normally do to make you feel good, you're like, okay, I've messed up, I've done something wrong. Okay, two more things. Cancerians can have victim mentality. I find water signs can generally have that as a trait, as a negative aspect of themselves. And the willingness to just make themselves the victim. So sometimes when you meet a Cancer and you're hearing stories of the past, you need to keep in mind that it's from their perspective, and most likely it's from a very emotional perspective, and it may not be necessarily accurate to the facts of the actual situation. So that's one thing to note. And two, we know that Cancerians can be clingy. I said two, but now it's three. Cancerians can be clingy, and that is a trait that not everyone can deal with. And lastly, Cancer men, something that I've noticed about them is they can get very controlling. Even though they can enjoy having spirited women, it's like they want their cake and to eat it too. They want you to do the emotional labor. They want you to be like the kind of mum that their mother was, in terms of like competence, in terms of like, holding it down, so to speak, and doing any of the emotional labor that comes with being in a relationship. But then you'll notice that they want to have maybe financial control, or they want to control who you see, and they can just get very much in your business and crash out as a means of controlling you, which we've already touched on before. That's pretty much everything that I can think of at this time. If you've got any thoughts about being a moon child, about Cancerian energy, the dark side, the unevolved side, please let me know down below. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.